Hello. Welcome back again to my channel, Library Without Borders. Here's a new video for you. So, in today's video, I wanted to share the books that I've read so far in the month of November. It is the 24th as I am filming this, which means we'll have about 6 days left till the end of the month. So, am I close to meeting my November targeted number of books to read? Nope. But I've been reading. So let's talk about these books. Don't go anywhere. Alright, Jambo, Karibu, welcome to my channel. My name is Chilanda and this is Library Without Borders. You guys, I like the look with the glasses, but I don't like the ring light. And if I turn off my ring light, let me just show you. You see? I can, but then you don't see the glare of the ring light. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not the best. We want the best. There you go. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Let's just change a bit. Okay. See? This is really good, but it's the ring light glare that I see in the reflection of my glasses that I don't like. But, I mean, we're just going to have to do what we got to do. Anyways, you guys, how are you doing? So, without further ado, I wanted to talk to you about 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 books that I've read so far, and 1 book or 2 books that I'm currently listening to and reading. So the first one is this book, The Secret Book of Flora Lee. I didn't know what to expect when I started reading this book, but boy oh boy was that marvelously surprised. I enjoy this book more than I thought I would. At first, the beginning was a little, slow, but once I got into the story, I was like, oh my God, it was such a cute story. So in this story, we follow 2 sisters, and their names are Hazel and Flora. So what happens is that this book is taking time during World War II. And it's when Hitler decides to attack everybody, basically. Okay, so what happens is that these kids are forced to be evacuated from, where is it? London, and they are brought into like a remote village somewhere. Now, before I even get into the thick of the story, I want to mention that what happened about these kids in London being evacuated in the countryside is based on a real story. They were called the Pied Piper. I guess it's either the Pied Piper program or the Pied Piper kids. And it was these, I think it was like close to 3,000 kids that were evacuated for them to be safe because London was being bombarded, right? So they wanted to keep their kids safe. So they brought them to the countryside where the countryside was not, was not touched by war. And they essentially put all these kids with different families and they were supposed to be reunited after. And if you read the article, you will see that some kids, they were, I think, evacuated like some places to like Canada, South Africa, and most of them did return to London to their respective families. So it's based on like that aspect of history. Again, history galore. Love that for me. And so the story is that Flora and Hazel have been sent to the country, right, to be safe. And at the same time, Hazel has developed this way of entertaining her sister by telling her all this story, make up stories, make up fairy tale. And there's a particular fairy tale that she begins to tell to her sister. It's called Whisperwood and the River of Stars. And it's a make-up story that she told her little sister Flora, and it was to pass the time, help her sleep. But then sometimes they'd go outside, they'll play in the forest, in the country, and they will just get lost in the storytelling, right? So essentially what happened is that one day she's there with the family. They have a son, like where the 2 girls have been brought to live with, that family, it's a mom and her boy. And she decides to take on the 2 girls. So one day it's like the boy, what's his name? Harry. It's Harry. So Harry and Hazel and Flora decide to go to the forest, and they're playing. And then at this time, Hazel is 14 years old and Flora is 6 years old. She's going through teenage hormonal changes, and her and Harry, who's I guess her age, 15 or 16. They decide to run a bit further because Flora decided to sleep. They go further and then they're over there frolicking and all that good stuff. And then they hear a scream. And all of that just happened in an instant. They run back close to the river and boom, Flora is no longer there. Oh, you guys, the story picked up from that point on. I was hyperventilating. Like, I was like, what happened? What you mean? What happened? Oh, Lord. You guys, Hazel and Harry looked down the river, aside the river. It was just a couple seconds. What do you mean? You would hear that little girl screaming or something like that. So, long story short, the whole village, including Harry's mom, who took on the children, and she really loved the girls, by the way, which I appreciated, because sometimes there were families during that time that took on kids and mistreated them. It's not everybody that can just love everybody, you know what I mean? So long story short is that they started looking for Flora, but she was nowhere to be found. So years later, Hazel has grown up. It's like 20 years after. She's lived her life, even though at the back of her mind, she still is feeling guilty, right? And she wants to find her sister, and she's never given hope. One day she's working at a bookstore and a book is brought to her. And it's this book called The Whispering Wood River and the Stars. And boom, essentially, once that book is deposited in her bookstore, she is shocked because remember that story, The Whisperwood River and Stars, she only told that story to her little sister, not even Harry, not even the mother. No one knew of that story. And from that point on, she will go on a journey to try and find her sister. Maybe her sister is still alive after all these years. Can you believe it? And at the same time, you will discover the relationship that she was in and if it will survive, because she will basically obsess in finding her sister. And at the same time, she will try to find the person who sent that book. Could it be her sister, or is it someone else playing a bad prank on her? And how did they come to know this story that was never told to anyone but her little sister? So anyways, you guys, I love the way she wrote that story. I love everything I discovered once she discovered what she discovered. So I mean, it was, did I say it was a 5-star or 4-point star? Four something out of 5. It's a great book. I definitely would recommend. I really enjoyed this book. So if you haven't picked it up, pick it up. Then I listened to this huge book. Okay, so I read Fourth Wing back in February and I actually did a vlog over it. Now this one, I decided to listen to it because I think I had it either for free or something. And sometimes I want to say this, that's why sometimes when you listen to other people review books, you have to try to make sure that you're not easily influenced by other people's reviews. I know when I was watching other booktubers, many booktubers, that they were a lot of mixed reviews about this book. So I listened to it, and first off, the girl was reading the story. I'm not sure how I found her voice, but I think she did her best attempt at reading the character Violet, because essentially we're following Violet from the first book and her 2 dragons and Xaden, right? And there are multiple complex characters of friends in the second book, okay? And in the first book, it did leave on a cliffhanger, and then we discover what that cliffhanger was in the second book, okay? There's a person coming back from the dead, okay? Let's just say that, okay? Apart from that, I do understand when people were saying that Violet needed to be a little over her reaction, because she discovered that Xaden was hiding some stuff from her in the first book, right? So now in the second book, it's basically her dealing with discovering those secrets that Xaden was hiding from her and going through the motion of, can I still trust him? What else is he hiding from me? Okay, so there's that. There's also the fact that we also discovered that there's another species of, I think they're called, what is it, vermin? Okay, and they are being ridden by these dark people who've basically gone to the dark side, and they are planning to take over Basgaius, which is that school or place, institution, okay? And yeah, so they basically now are on a journey. Xaden, all their friends, Liam, all of them. What is it? Enos, okay, they're on a journey to attempt and try to not divert, but try to intercept this coming day of doom. Did I just make sense? I probably don't make sense. But it's basically them trying to be prepared in order to fight these Vernon, because they're here to kill, right? And they don't want Vice guys to be taken over. So it's essentially that. And of course, it's a romantasy, so there's a lot of that whole sex that was happening a lot. I mean, at some point I was listening, and I usually listen to my audio when I'm working out, and I was working and I think I almost strayed because there was some scenes that I was just like, it's so unhinged, like really. So anyways, you guys, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but just know that like it was good, you know, it wasn't Fourth Wing, right? But it was good. And I will read the Onyx whatever third book that's coming up in January. I'm definitely gonna read it. So it's a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, it's interesting enough. Like, of course, there were some aspects I was rolling my eyes. There's a lot of fighting. Sorry, I forgot to mention. There is constant fighting. I know that's one aspect that's really big in the fantasy world. It's the fighting. It's the complex characters that you found. I mean, characters were there left and right. Okay, they were introduced to another group that Zayden has been working with. Right? He's been bringing, how do you call it? Not guns, but he's bringing les armes, hein, Bachir, comment tu dis, les armes, hein, to this group of people with whom he's collaborating in order to fight all these, you know, Vernon, all these dark stuff like that. So the only thing I'm gonna say is that the end, we need to find out what happens, because although Zayden and Violet do sort of work things out throughout the book, and if you read the book, you know something has occurred, right? And it concerns Zayden. I'm just gonna say that, right? Okay, if you read, you know, right? And we don't know what's gonna happen now that has happened to Zayden, right? So okay, before I spoil it, okay, I'm done. So it's a 3.5 out of 5. Read it, I do recommend. So next, I read this lovely book. Now, this book, when I was reading, you know what was happening? The elections in the United States. And it's so funny because at some point in this book, there's mention of Trump and his hotel and stuff like that. And I'm laughing because I'm like, it's written by a Cameroonian, right? So I'm like, as a black person, what you're saying right now, today, you wouldn't be saying it. But obviously it was written a long time ago, a while ago. Maybe in 2000. But it's the story of Jende. Okay, Jende. So the story of Jende is lovely. It's basically that immigrant story that you guys can guess. Okay, the immigrant story, the immigrant experience in the United States. So he's from Cameroon, and he has a chance to come through a, how do you call it? Green card through the United States. And there he's helped by his cousin who has amassed all that money and the visa, and he's able to come to the United States. That's all gravy. And at the same time, he's looking for a job, right? So he, again, with the help of his cousin, does find a job working for this white employer who decides to make him his driver. So Jende, he's responsible to drive his white employer everywhere, and he's gonna get paid good money. Okay, for a newcomer who doesn't have experience and who didn't do much schooling, that's great. Now, the only thing with him driving is that he starts to discover aspects of his own life and aspect of the employer's life, and you have multiple point of views in this book. You hear from Jende, and you also hear from his wife. So his wife is going to school because that's what they decided. He's gonna work, save money, trying to give her to go to school. She wants to be a pharmacist. Great. And then at the same time, Jende, while he's working for his employer, he will be privy to certain conversations that are happening in the car, in the vehicle with his employer. Some things that he knows he cannot tell to the employer's wife, or he does share some of those things to his wife. One such thing is that he's privy to the many issues that are happening in the marriage of his employer. And I want to say one thing. There was an aspect that was really, it had me thinking, you know what I mean? So you discover something about the wife of the employer. She's well off. You know, she's rich. I mean, she's living the rich life. Okay, she got a great life, a great house. She got money. She got 2 beautiful boys, and one of them is way older. The other one is very young, and that young boy will love Jende and his wife, and they do have a son that's his age, and they will, you know, get to know each other. But that's from another. I'll talk about that later. So what happens with that? The wife was very rich. I forgot her name. I wish I had her name. So Neni is the wife of Jende. But the white wife, what's her name? Cindy. Her name is Cindy. So what you discover about Cindy, which really hurt me, was that she starts to talk to Jende's wife, because they have also employed her to work at their house just for like a week or 2 weeks, because I think the one that was working either went on mat leave or somewhere, it was the summer and they just needed a temporary person to take on the job of maid, right? But one day she has drank much. Cindy is drinking. She does get, like, she drinks a lot. You discover about that aspect about Cindy. She drinks a lot. So one of those nights she's overcome and she's drunk. She decides to open up to Neni, the wife of Jende. And she admits to Neni that she is a kid of rape. Basically, her mother was raped. So please look out for that triggering aspect. And ever since then, the relationship between her mom and her has never been good. And that really made me think about a lot of things, because y'all know, for those who have been with me, I am from this country right here. This one, Congo, okay? And you guys know that in any wars, there's always rape, right? And many of our women suffer that, and most times, sometimes, there are kids that are produced from that action. What do you do? What do you do? And whatever action do you do, could you get blamed? Could you know what I mean? So imagine Cindy is going through that. It's not her fault, but you understand now why sometimes she drinks, why sometimes she's on the pills and all that stuff. But I was heartbroken for her, because I felt it. I felt it, and it just reminded me of, what do you do if you go through something like that, and what do you do with that child? You know what I mean? So that was hard to read. But apart from that, you guys, things are happening, and one day it is during that recession. I think it was, one aspect of this book was the fact that it was when Obama was, being elected to in the United States, and it was like that whole time when a black president was, gonna be elected president. So, and at that time there was the crisis, the, what do you call it, honey? When that whole financial crisis happened, right? So unfortunately, Jende had to be let go. Now all hell breaks loose, like he wanted to get money so that he could apply for, I guess, his visa. But now that has been intercepted, because now he doesn't have money and he can't find a job because he doesn't have papers, okay? Apart from that, now Neni finds a way to basically extort Cindy for more money. There's a reason why she does it, okay, guys? You have to read the book. But it was good. It was good. I was like, girl, you a bad bitch. But she did what she had to do. So they have this big amount of money that come into their hands, and Jende is mad because he still cares about his employer, because, I mean, they gave him an opportunity to work, and she does what she did. But, desperate times calls for desperate measures, okay? So unfortunately, a lot of things happen, and now he decides that, you know what, he also has a court date, because you have to, right? For immigrants, that you have to go to court. Either they're gonna deport you, or they're gonna let you stay. So instead of him trying to pay all this money, all of that, he tells his wife, he's like, you know what, we're just gonna go back to Cameroon. And Neni, his wife, tries to fight him. And also, one thing I'm gonna say, there is, physical abuse that happened between them two, which I did not like. And the way the wife stayed reminded me of how typically in African couples people deal with physical abuse. She literally handled it like we handle in Africa. Somebody heard her, you know what, she was like, no, everything is fine, it's cool. And by all means, I'm not for anything physical happen and then you go call the police. I mean, but also, right, I'm just saying. So that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, she tries to stay, but then her husband is like, no, we're going. And for me, I was like, but run, stay. Why are you trying to? He wants to. But no, she's like, we're married. He's the husband. He's the head. He's the chief. He's like, whatever. When he says that, we're going. So yeah. Anyways, I want to just share a couple of quotes here before I finish talking about this book. So I think his cousin is saying this. My advice to someone like you is to always stay close to the gray area and keep yourself and your family safe. Stay away from any place where you can run into police. That's the advice I give you and to all young black men in this country. The police is for the protection of white people, my brother. Ouch! Ouch. For all of us immigrants, this, we can see, like, when I was reading this, literally, you guys, I was following the whole debate, what was happening in the United States, okay? And I was just like, damn, you know? Anyways, I'm gonna share 2 more quotes. So at this point, Jende is talking to his employer, sharing a little bit of his, Cameroonian traditions, and they're talking about marriage. And here he says, it does not show respect for a woman, sir. A man has to go to a woman's family and pay a bride price for her head, sir, and then take her out through the front door. I had to show I am a real man, sir, not take her for free as if she is something I picked on the street. So this is for you guys who, a little bit curious about some African traditions. That is why we do what we do. When a man goes to marry a woman, he wants to ask for his hands. They do bring gifts. Now, I know a lot of people, it's hard for them to understand. It's like, are you putting value on a woman? That's not what it means. Okay, I'm telling you that already, because that's not what it means. It just means we're coming, we want to ask for the hand of your daughter, and we want to bring gifts because we want to thank you for having taken care of her, for having raised her, for the sweat, for all of this. And no money, no amount of gifts can literally pay for all of that. But it's just a token of our gratitude for having taken care of this daughter that we now want to take away from you and into our family. That's basically what it means. So I love that he mentioned that. So next, one more. Ah, look at this play. This is Neni. She's having a conversation with Cindy. She's like, no, you don't understand. She said, being poor for you in Africa is fine. Most of you are poor over there. The shame of it, it's not as bad for you. Ah! Hey! Okay. Hey. Most of us are poor in Africa. Is this how... Should I get into it? You see, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes my brothers and sisters from everywhere outside of the African continent, it is those misconceptions that have been fed to you, that you think that because we're coming and leaving our country, we are poor. It's not always that. Most of people that I've met that are coming actually here are going back to Congo, believe it or not. So this is another conversation for another day, or the video will be too long. So lastly, at this point, he's saying here, he's talking again about marriage. The kinds of marriage people have in this country, Bo, very strange. It's not like back home where a man can do as he sees fit and a woman follows him. Over here, it's reversed. Women tell their men what they want and the men do it because they say happy wife, happy life. This society is funny. So that for me, remember I always say I'm a traditional modern wife. I get what he's saying because yes, most of our African countries, it's very patriarchal, and the man is the chief, is the head, is the lead, whatever he says it goes. Whereas here, men are now, when they come, they're like, oh, this is like, as they say, usually the country of women's rights, and So it gets it's difficult for the men who are immigrating here. Okay, you guys, I'm done. I wanted to mention that Trump part. Gosh, what was the Trump part?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
Ha! I found it. So he says he will take us to a restaurant in the Trump Hotel, Nanny said, laughing, a spoonful of miso soup in one hand. He will hire Donald Trump himself to cook steak for us. I know this wasn't meant as a joke, but as we know, this is in parentheses. Y'all saw Trump has been elected. It's not, I'm not even gonna get into that. You know, it's happened. America has chosen, okay? Now look at how his government, what it's made of, the race that governs, you know, the whole White House, okay? Now, just reading that, okay? Do you really think that black people can get in, you know, with Trump? So when I read that, I was like, oh, Nanny, if you only knew the reality, if you only knew. But anyways, I really enjoy this book. It's a 4 out of 5, and thank you to D. Ruxel because she recommended this, and most of her books that she's recommending, I always find them really enjoyable. They really hit it for me, so I really love it, and I'm so happy because in my quest to read more books by authors from motherland, I found one from Cameroon, and I was happy with the way she told her story. I found it enjoyable, and it was really it was striking, you know. It was interesting to hear about the immigrant experience in the United States. So I recommend 4 out of 5. And lastly, I read this lovely book that I actually talked about in my video talking about this particular series, and as I said in that video, it's the last book in the Lazar family saga, and I cried. I love this series so much, and we finished the story with Claire, Esh, and David. Claire is Teresa's daughter, and if you recall, Tess was the love interest of the priest Joseph, and David is the nephew of Joseph. He's the son of Joseph's sister who passed on way early in the story. And it is an Esh. I can't tell you about Esh because you need to read the 3rd and 2nd to understand who he is and why he's in this book and last book. But what I want to say is simply that I loved the way she talked about the Indian history and how Indians were exterminated by our lovely white people. And she talked a lot about the enslaved people, how they were treated then. And in this book, there's also a triggering event that happens. You're very triggering. It happens actually at the beginning of the page, and I have to mention it because she doesn't, unfortunately this book, I guess it was written a long time ago, so it's not like these new books where they actually put the triggering message at the beginning of the book. So there is an event of rape that happens to the character, the main character, and it's very, very upsetting. Like I actually was crying. It was really bad. And although that's what I wanted to say, so I'm so happy I'm reminded. You see this thing about rape? Let me just share a little something that the character said. Anyways, you guys, I'm gonna come back to my thought, okay, about the rape, but listen to this quote. American slavery is only not a sin, but especially commended by God. Our slaves are the happiest 3 millions of human beings on whom the sun shines. Written by James Henry Hammond, Letter on Southern Slavery, 1845. Should I read this again for people? American slavery is not only not a sin, but especially commended by God. This is the belief that most white Americans believe, and probably still believe today, unfortunately. So, what I wanted to go back about what happened to the main character in terms of the rape was that same thing happened to one of the enslaved women. And I can't, like I usually highlight or tab it. I'm not sure why I didn't tab, but like there was a nice paragraph where the author touched about the fact that black and white, when it came to men, they both could endure that, and they usually didn't have they couldn't fight it, because you have to remember during that time, even if you went to the authorities back then, it was very patriarchal. It was very, the woman belonged to the man, and the man could do whatever he wanted. So in this respect, both the white and the black women didn't have power over their bodies. And you think, even till today, with what's happening in the United States about women's rights, you would have thought more white and black women would have. I'm just saying, okay? That's all I wanted to say. She does say something about that. Apart from that, what else can I share with you guys before I conclude this final series? There's a part here where David, remember I already talked about David, right? So David, he's studying to become a doctor. And he's studying, and then he's reading past medical, I guess, studies that were done. And here it says, the cause in the most of cases that induces the Negro to run away from service is as much a disease of the mind as any species of mental alienation, and much more curable as a general rule. That induces the Negro to run away from service. Service? What? Oh my God. I'm not done. With the advantages of proper medical advice strictly followed, this troublesome practice that many Negroes have of running away can be almost entirely prevented. My God. Imagine that. Running away from torture, from enslavement. It's a disease. Please, please, please. Oh, here again, they talked about the Sister Grimke. So again, y'all know when I found some references to historical facts and I'm like, I've known about it because I read about it somewhere, and I'm like, oh, okay. So they talked about like the Grimke sisters, which I liked. And at some point, René talks here to Claire about his Yoruba ancestry, which I really liked. And I loved the way the author talked about not only the Yoruba beliefs, she does talk about like how we believe, like Yoruba people believed in like gods and things like that. She also talked about Indians and their beliefs, and Zizistas, Dakota, how I discovered that the Lazar family had Dakota blood in them. Can you believe it? They had Indian, African. Anyways, it was really, really good. Really good. Here, who's talking? David. So he says here, sadly, that is not the case. White people practice cruelty on a larger scale, but it was Indians from another tribe who sold my Dakota great-grandmother into slavery. Some African tribes sell their enemies into slavery too. Humans of any color can be cruel and cowardly, or brave and brilliant and beautiful. If you learn nothing else on your journey, Esh, I hope you learned that. Being mostly white doesn't make you superior to Indians or Africans, nor does it make you ugly or selfish. Only your own choices can do that. So, guys, I have to conclude here because, again, what else can I say that I enjoy this book and I loved it so much. I've already talked about it in my video. I'm talking about it. I'm hoping that I've shared enough information without spoiling it for you to be intrigued enough in this series and want to learn about the Lazar family. And at the same time, while you're learning about the Lazar family, you will learn about the characters. You will learn a lot of interesting historical facts about the United States, about different peoples. And I mean, it was full circle. I loved it. I really loved it. It's a 5-star. Absolutely love this series. So 5-star. That's why you have, right now I'm listening to James. Whew. I'm loving the book, but I have to say that it is angering me. There are some aspects, and I love the narrator because he's doing a great job of doing Huckleberry's accent and Jim's accent, and there are some aspects where it's funny, like y'all know if you read James by Percival Everett, where you meet the Duke and the King, and they say that they were, one of them was king in France and Duke to a land and blah blah blah, but also the derogatory, the humiliating way that they're treating Jim. And at some point, where I am now is where he is meeting this group of singers who are wearing blackface. Whew! Yo, y'all are gonna make me lose my mind.
Up in here, up in here.
I'm telling you, it never gets easier. Reading these books, like I was laughing at some aspects because it was funny, and I think those parts were meant to be funny, but most of it I was just like, and I'm driving and I'm just like there's one part where there's, I think it was Jordan, and he gets hanged. First of all, he gets whipped because he stole a pencil, y'all. Anyways, that's what I'm listening, and as I said, I'm enjoying it so far, and I think it's gonna be actually, like, if not 5-star, like a 4-star at least. Like, it's a contender for 5-star. Like, it's good. And I am currently reading Never Tell. Sorry, I left the book upstairs in my room. It's Never Tell by Stacey Abrams, writing a Selena Montgomery. And I'm enjoying this book so much. So I can't wait to talk to you about it in my wrap up. So most of the books that I talked about in this video, I will not be going into too much details in my wrap up video, because that's what I'm trying to do, trying to shorten my video. Okay. So there you have it. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like, to comment, to share, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for everyone that has newly subscribed to my channel. We are growing, and we love that for us, right? So thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.